Hi, are you excited to find out what happens to Camilla Cream in the end of our book? Today, our mission is to find the solution in our book. So, just like yesterday, I want you to get out your Foundations journal and open up to the page that you worked on yesterday. Now, yesterday you should have drew what the problem was over here, and then wrote what the problem was using your very best, personal best handwriting and spelling. Today, we're going to focus on the solution, which is what the other side of your picture box is going to be. So now in your notebook, I want you to write the solution was. So go ahead, and if you need to pause this video to make sure you write the solution was, you can do that. And then when you're done, turn it back on so we can read our book. All right, friends, so today we're trying to find the solution. I'm going to refresh your brain. Remember, the solution has to fit with the problem. So you did your very best to write the problem yesterday. Now I want you to think about how that problem gets fixed in this story. I'm going to read the ending part. Now usually in most books that first graders read, the problem is at the beginning and the solution is at the end. So that is a good way to know what the problem and solution are, where it is in the book. So yesterday when we read, we ended after the specialist saw Camilla Cream, and she took her medicine and she turned into a very big pill. Oh my goodness, multicolored pill. Let's see what happens. Dr. Bumble rushed over as soon as Mrs. Cream called, but this time instead of specialists, he brought the experts. Dr. Gord, Mr. Mellon were the finest scientific minds in the land. Once again, Camilla was poked and prodded, looked at and listened to. The experts wrote down lots of numbers. Then they huddled together and they whispered. Dr. Gord finally spoke. It might be a virus, he announced with authority. Suddenly, fuzzy little virus balls appeared all over Camilla. Or possibly some form of bacteria, said Mr. Mellon. Out popped squiggly little bacteria tails. Or it could be a fungus, added Dr. Gord. Instantly, Camilla was covered in different colored fungus blotches. The experts looked at Camilla, then at each other. We need to go over these numbers back at the lab, Dr. Gord explained. We'll call you if we know something. But the experts didn't have a clue, much less a cure. By now, the TV news had found out about Camilla. Reporters from every channel were outside her house telling the story of the bizarre case of the incredible changing kid. Soon, a huge crowd was camped out on the front lawn. That is a huge crowd. The Creams were swamped with all kinds of remedies from psychologists, allergists, herbalists, nutritionists, psychics, and an old medicine man, a guru, and even a veterinarian. Each so-called cure only added to poor Camilla's strange appearance until it was hard to even recognize her. She sprouted roots and berries and crystals and feathers and a long furry tail, but nothing worked. One day, a woman who called herself an environmental therapist claimed she could cure Camilla. Close your eyes, she said. Breathe deeply and become one with your room. I wish you hadn't said that, Camilla groaned. Slowly, she started to melt into the walls of her room. Her bed became her mouth. Her nose was a dresser, and 2 paintings were her eyes. The therapist screamed and ran from the house. What are we going to do? Cried Mrs. Cream. It just keeps getting worse and worse. She began to sob. She turned into the room. See? 2 eyes, nose, mouth. At that moment, Mr. Cream heard a quiet little knock on the front door. He opened it, and there stood an old woman who was just as plump and sweet as a strawberry. "Excuse me," she said brightly, "but I think I can help." She went into Camilla's room and looked around. "My goodness," she said with a shake of her head. "What we have here is a bad case of the stripes. One of the worst I've ever seen." She pulled a container of small green beans from her bag. "Here," she said, "this might do the trick." "Are those magic beans?" asked Mrs. Cream. "Oh my, no," said the old woman. "There's no such thing. These are just plain old lima beans. I bet you'd like some, wouldn't you?" she asked Camilla. Camilla wanted a big heaping plate full of lima beans more than just about anything, but she was still too afraid to admit it. "Yuck," she said. "No one likes lima beans, especially me." "Oh dear," said the woman sadly. "I guess I was wrong about you." She put the beans back in her bag and started towards the door. Camilla watched the old woman walk away. Those beans would taste so good, and being laughed at for eating them was nothing compared to what she had gone through. She finally couldn't stand it. "Wait!" she cried. "The truth is, I really love lima beans." "I thought so," the old woman said with a smile. She took a handful of beans and popped them into Camilla's mouth. "Mmm," said Camilla. Suddenly, the branch's feathers, squiggly tails began to disappear. Then the whole room swirled around. When it stopped, there stood Camilla, and everything was back to normal. "I'm cured!" she shouted. "Yes," said the old woman. "I knew the real you was in there somewhere." She patted Camilla on the head. Then she went outside and vanished into the crowd. Afterward, Camilla wasn't quite the same. Some of the kids at school said she was weird, but she didn't care a bit. She ate all the lima beans she wanted, and she never had even a touch of the stripes again. That was such a great book. Now that your book is all set up, here is your job for today. Over here on this side, you're going to draw what the solution to the problem was. Then, again, using your very best handwriting and making your sentence beautiful and stretching out those words as best as you can, you're going to write what the solution is. Then, your whole page will be done. You're going to take a picture of this and upload it into your Seesaw account so your teacher can see how you found the problem and solution. I hope you had fun. See you soon.